Greetings, superstars! To the brigade of Brainiac members who are building a foundation from the ground up to become solid mathematicians and scientists, continue the video. For those who are specifically here for the technique to accomplish the impressive act of memorizing pi up to 10 digits, feel free to jump ahead to the time frame being pushed across the screen. At this mark, we begin the Verbindungen process to becoming a memory machine.
How can I lock up important information into my long-term memory and hold in my fingertips the key that easily opens this precious vault of information anytime I want at my command? That's a skill we will work on today.
Welcome to Alien Institute.
So long-term memory, for all intents and purposes, is an unlimited storage place in the mind where memories, facts, ideas, emotions, and other types of information can be stored away for months, years, or even forever if we keep our minds sharp. The trick to lock up these memories is to first get the hippocampus, an important part of the brain, to move the information from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. The second thing we must master is that once we have put the information we want into the filing cabinet in our mind, we must then be able to retrieve it quickly. Logically thinking, it wouldn't be effective and we wouldn't be at our best if we let a folder with the letter M be filed away under the letter T. Having the information in our filing cabinet but not being able to retrieve it is almost as bad as not acquiring the information in the first place. Of course, I say almost, but storing it in the first place is definitely better than not storing it at all. So how do we get this two-pronged fork, these two factors of storage and retrieval, done efficiently? Now, it's not as simple as the new brain, or I should say newer part of the brain relative to time, to tell the old part of the brain how to work. It's up to the new part of the brain, when connecting to the old parts of the brain, like the amygdala, to speak in a language that the old brain understands. The thinking neocortex needs to develop creative strategies that will get our reflexive and more emotional-based part of the older brain to work to our advantage. Now, in the field of memory science, we have lots to talk about. We need to eventually talk about semantic memory and episodic memory under the umbrella of declarative memory. Then there's procedural memory, priming memory, and non-associative learning under the umbrella of implicit memory. We can also talk to you about the German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus, who spent many hours of memorizing gibberish to enlighten us on the ways that memory work.
Ja, das ist sehr gut gemacht.
Additionally, we could show you where the temporal lobe is in your brain. The temporal lobe is where the all-important seahorse part of the brain called the hippocampus lives. There are actually two of these seahorse-shaped parts in the temporal lobe of the brain, and if we were to surgically remove one of them or both of them, the brain could no longer create new memories. In general, information goes through the thalamus as the first filter called sensory gating. If there's a wild-looking dog that disappears behind a building, the brain will hold on to that information for a while due to the potential danger. Whereas a leaf in the middle of the sidewalk will barely be noticed and certainly not remembered. Turn that leaf into a $100 bill and the status of the memory game changes. A lot of someone's memories will be sent to that seahorse-shaped part of the mind. Like a switchboard operator, the hippocampus, using novelty, sends messages to help lay down the cable network of neurons to other parts of the brain. such as the amygdala, cerebral cortex, basal ganglia, frontal lobe, and cerebellum. Throughout the brain, these connecting neurons form the long-term memories. Like an efficient algorithm, the hippocampus and the amygdala have the duty to further filter through lots of information. In some respects, stripping unneeded details but holding on to necessary components. Maybe you remember a car accident, but don't remember years later the date that it happened. The accident stuck in your mind, but the date, for the most part, was irrelevant. Sometimes the date of something takes on meaning. For instance, every American has a connection with the 4th of July. Some information is important and some useless, at least to us. Our brain decides that if it is forgettable sensory information, then we throw it out. If it is deemed necessary information, then it is ultimately converted from emotion into a chemical route to different locations of the brain. Anytime you need to remember something, your brain will follow a map. That chemical route often linked to an emotion to access those memories. Every time you recall something successfully, your brain is designed to give you a nice chemical reward in what some refer to as the dopamine kick. While understanding how your gray matter works will definitely build confidence and foundation in your academic endeavors, as well as giving you the ability to create unique techniques in the world of mastering memories, that's not what we're going to focus on today. Yes, a whole memory course would be a great first step in our quest to become scientists and be part of the big minds who are working on big problems. But I always like to activate minds by beginning with techniques that work. In essence, make you a believer before we talk about the nuts and bolts of practice and theory. The von Neumann method says if you become successful with a technique, that will motivate a person to dig deeper. So in the future, we will dig deeper. But today, I want to recall for you an exchange I had with one of my students around 3 decades ago. Around 3 decades ago, while teaching one of my college students math, she needed the approximation of pi. Of course, she knew 3.14. They all do. But feeling the need to get a reaction, I rattled off 3.14159265359. Her eyes got big as she asked me how I knew so many digits of pi. Of course, since I got such a reaction, I told her I have over 30 digits memorized. In reality, it was just over 30, 31 to be exact. She said, "You're kidding." So I proceeded to go the distance and one by one spit out the 31 digits. Back then I could rattle off 31 digits cold because I did it so often. But nowadays I'm rarely challenged. But for sure, the first 17 are locked in my vault forever, with digits after that pulling me into deeper water. The good news is I could get the 31 back at any time I want. Now, when you rattle off many digits of pi, you always get an amazed response. But often the amazement is followed by the question, why would you memorize so many digits of pi? My best response as a mathematician is, I guess I made an irrational decision. Depending on their level of math, some get the joke and some don't. Anyway, back to my student. She asked me if I could teach her how to do it. I said to her, I think I can, but let's make sure you understand your trig first. After we finished with her trig questions, we then went into how I memorized pi to 31 digits. To be honest, I can't remember one moment or day when I sat down and said, I'm going to develop a memory technique. The truth is that I have several techniques, and if I joined a memorization club, I could probably get even better. My memory techniques were definitely a gradual process, many of them forming in junior high school. Actually, before junior high school, if you count things like songs and the flag salute. As far as the flag salute, who else thought it was into visible with liberty and justice for all? In my defense, I was only 5 and my brother did a lot of magic around the house. Anyway, back to my student. I begin with telling her that memory does not have to be haphazard. A person can create techniques that can be practiced and honed into a serious mental weapon. I told her for my technique that I dubbed the Verbindungen fork, I said you need 4 steps. The 4 steps are: 1. Motivation to remember the thing you're trying to remember. For me, getting reactions of going out 31 digits of pi was motivation enough. Step 1, motivation checked off. Next step, 2, is what some people refer to as chunking. Your mind is much better when you break things up into bite-sized chunks your mind can absorb. Chunks of 2 pieces up to no more than 4 pieces are ideal. So if you're memorizing a bunch of people's names, group those names as couples or groups of 3. If you're memorizing objects, group them into 2s, 3s, or 4s. Do the same thing with a bunch of colors in particular order if that's what you need to remember. The next step, step 3, is the Verbindungen part. In the technique, Verbindungen in German means connections. My job and your job is to form an emotional connection to the items we're trying to memorize. In the digits of pi case, I told my student that I chunked those digits primarily in groups of 2. So most everyone knows 3.14, but most people don't know that the number after 14 or 14 is just the next number as if counting, the number 15. So 3.1415. See? Now you're already up to 5 digits yourself. Memorize as 1415, but say 1415. Why? Because it sounds more impressive. And impressing your friends or students is the only reason to memorize pi. So after the 5, I stop the thought with a 9. 9 to me in pi terms means stop the one idea and start a new one. So after the 9, I think Dad's birthday. He was born on the 26th. After that, I think of my brother's birth year, 53. Then I would think of my teammate and good friend's hockey jersey number. It is 58. I don't make a habit of memorizing jersey numbers of my teammates, but he would always remind everyone why he picked the number 58. He said he picked 58 because no one picks that number. So if he's on a new team, he avoids having to battle with anyone to get his number. His process for choosing a number was so unique that I never forgot it, and we began playing hockey together in the mid-1980s. Moral of the story, funny memories stay in your mind for a long time. After 58, I stop that line of thinking with the 9 again and start up anew. So I have at this point 3.14159265358 or the way I think of it, 3.1415 stop. That's the 9. Dad's birthday, brother's birth year, friend's hockey number, stop. I keep getting strings of thought that are connected to memories I have already logged away in my memory years ago. Proceeding with this technique, I can go out further and further. For instance, if I need to remember the number 11, I think of my hockey number and why I picked it. Apollo 11, the mission that landed on the moon first. The moon landing of Apollo 11 is the most exciting thing I've ever experienced. If I need to connect another number like 23, I image the double helix. And I think 23 chromosomes. I think you get the idea at this point. So using your own connections, your own Verbindungen, your mission today will be to get to at least 10 digits of pi. Remember, you already have 3.1415 to start. This exercise will give you the confidence and practice to excel when you actually have to. That is to say, when you have really important information to remember. Now, so far, we have listed 3 of the 4 steps. To put the finishing touches on this memory game and to complete the fork, we refer back to pre-cell phone days. Older people can think back to a time when they memorized a friend's phone number. They would usually chunk the first 3 digits and then the last 4, and the number was linked to a good feeling, their friend. The number may have also had rhythm to it. A rhyme or rhythm helps, but it is not necessary. So is that why I still remember my friend's old phone number over 50 years later? Well, sort of, but there's one more ingredient. The ingredient is repetition. I couldn't even say, if asked, how many times I phoned that number over many, many years. And don't forget the dopamine kick. We are rewarded by our brain every time we successfully recall something. I'd call the right number, my friend would answer, and the reward would be some fun athletic event. Comparatively, I still remember my locker combination from high school, but admittedly, it's harder to recall because it's not directly linked to a specific feeling. So repetition is crucial in our quest to build our mind. Memory researchers, if I remember correctly, have conducted experiments that show that the memory grooves get deeper if our brain recalls something at the moment right before we forget it. You know, that moment when you say to yourself, wait a minute, I know this. Then after digging in your brain, you recall it. If you can't recall it, you waited too long. This is the idea behind the SRS or Spaced Repetition System models. An app like Anki or Quizlet allows you to create flashcards, and the algorithm is designed to test you just before you forget the information on the card. Anki is a great tool for those who have to memorize science terms and concepts. Just make sure you are making connections to what you're learning, because repetition is only a piece of the story. So with the Digits of Pi talent show, I was motivated, I chunked the digits, I made connections to the chunks, and then I would say the digits as I wrote them down. If I missed a part, I'd work to make that part of my memory more vivid. For instance, if I forgot my brother's birth year, I'd tell myself that my brother came after my dad, of course. That I'd say to make sure I have him in order. Then I say to myself that he is 11 years older than me, which means he is born in 53. I'd make a vision of me being little and him being much bigger because he was born in 53. After good focus on that connection, I'd run through the digits of pi again. First day, I randomly test myself 50 or 60 times with a 3x5 card of pi in my back pocket as my check. Day 2, test myself 30 times while making any necessary adjustments. The rest of the week, test yourself randomly 20 times a day. For the next 2 weeks, test yourself twice every other day, then go to every third day, and so on. Eventually, if you made good connections, you can test yourself maybe a couple of times a year. Of course, there are other memory techniques like the memory palace, the blob, prompting using a positive garden path, etc., and your memory skill gets stronger as the techniques overlap. But for today, your homework is to first write in the comments something that was difficult to remember a long time ago that you still remember today. The second part of your homework, as mentioned before, is to get pi out to 10 digits. That way, when you're at your next party and someone says they're going to cut the pumpkin pie, you can shamelessly say, Isn't there a number for pi? As always, someone will pipe in with 3.14, and you will say, yeah, that's right. As we know, we could go on about pi infinitely, starting with, and then you rattle off, 3.1415926535589. But in your head, you're thinking 3.1415926535589.